Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, welcome. My name is Adelina and I make videos about living in this tiny house on wheels and living a more intentional life. You guys have been patiently waiting for some news about where am I going to be living in Serendipity, the tiny house, now that I have to move from this spot where I am right now. And I have some news. I actually ended up with 5 potential parking spots, which was wonderful, and I was grateful that I had options. And there were pluses and minuses to all of these options. Sophie, you're going to get your tail in here. Come here, just relax. A few weeks ago, I took a trip with some girlfriends to Gabriola Island, just off the coast of Vancouver Island, and we just took a weekend to relax, which was wonderful. What their help gave me was the ability to sort of sift through these options and come to a decision about which spot I was going to take. First, I'm going to tell you about the locations. So the first location I'm going to tell you about was on the Sunshine Coast. The Sunshine Coast is the coast of the mainland facing Vancouver Island. This spot was a year-round RV park and a really pretty location, about 35 minutes, 40 minutes from Seashell, if you want to look at a map. And I think it was called Madeira Park. I really liked the young couple that owned it. It is a legal park to spot. It is a legal spot to park with septic, 50 amp electrical, internet, and a separate building with a washer and dryer, with washers and dryers. The pluses for Madeira Park on the Sunshine Coast are that it is a legal park spot to park. I won't have this issue again. It is a really beautiful location, private, a little remote, with lots of forest and walking paths and such. And I really liked the owners. The negatives for Madeira Park on the Sunshine Coast were it was a 2 ferry ride to get from that location to Vancouver Island to see my friends in Victoria. It was a ferry ride from there to Vancouver in order to catch a plane if I wanted to catch a plane for work or to go back and see the kids in Calgary. And it felt kind of remote, but beautiful location. And I really love the fact that it is legal, $800 a month, all in. So that was Madeira Park on the Sunshine Coast. Then there was a spot just by Qualicum Beach. Now, Qualicum Beach is just up island. And it is a very popular spot for tourists. The beach is really long, really beautiful, great location. This spot is in a mobile home park, and the mobile home park apparently had been purchased like last year by a new owner, and he's doing some renovations and building a couple of new spots. So I talked to the rental agent, friend of the owner, and made an appointment to go and see it. And so the mobile home park, when you drove, as I'm driving to it, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is my spot. It's absolutely beautiful. And as you drive into it, the first couple of mobile homes are really nice. The yards are beautiful. The mobile homes are really pretty. But very quickly you realize that this park is extremely run down. There are some, I guess, like cottages or something, houses on one side, and apparently the previous landlord was a slum landlord. A lot of those buildings, the houses in particular, didn't have electricity or running water. Now this new owner is doing their best to get all of those situations rectified, but the location that he was building, the lot he was building, was right beside this utility building, and it was creepy. So we're calling this one the Qualicum Beach Deliverance mobile home park. If you've seen the movie Deliverance, you'll get a feel for the vibe that I got driving in there. The Qualicum Beach Deliverance mobile home park lot was $1,000 a month. So that's number 2. The third spot that I saw was just on the just outside of Nanaimo. That whole area is considered like the Nanaimo region, and this wasn't inside city limits, but it was an acreage sort of community. The lot was at the edge of the yard of the house. The couple that own it are in the States for a few years for work, and they rented out the big house to some friends. They had friends of friends with a trailer, an RV in the lot, but they were about to move, and so they were looking to rent it out. The lot was beautifully built. There was septic and a separate electrical meter. Really nice landscaped yard, great big lawn where the septic field was, so you can't park on it or anything, but that would have been mine to use. The neighbor behind is a friend of theirs, and he is the caretaker for that yard, for renting it out for the people that are renting the house and whoever rents that lot. I was worried at first when I saw the lot that it wasn't going to be big enough for my house, so I went back a second time with my friend Tracy and her fella Derek, and we paced it out, and yes, it would have been big enough for my house. Really pretty area. It's a little cul-de-sac where the house is and the lot is, and the caretaker fellow assured me that all the neighbors were okay with it, that other neighbors had RVs and renters on their properties, and that there would be no problem. So the plus, it's an area I'm familiar with. I wouldn't be moving that far away from here, and close to all of the things that I still love, close to Nanaimo and all the stores there, and not that much farther from Victoria, where I have friends. But $950 a month, and again, the possibility that, maybe one of the neighbors sells their house to somebody else, and the new purchaser, the new neighbor, doesn't like the idea of somebody having a tiny house rental in their yard. So there was still going to be the possibility that the knock on the door would happen again. So that was the Nanaimo property, but really pretty place. And then there was Black Creek. Black Creek is about halfway between Courtenay and Campbell River, mid-island. This location is a year-round RV park and campground, and right on the Oyster River. When I went down to see it, it seemed like a really cool spot. There's already 4 tiny houses in this one area, a separate area for year-round RVs, small campground below, right next to the river, and then up on a bluff is this mini tiny house community. I did love the fact that it was a year-round RV park, so legal to park there. I never have to worry about the knock. The price was right. It was $600 a month plus tax, but it was a 30 amp service versus 50 amp, and internet could be a challenge because Shaw, who's my internet provider now, does not service that area. TELUS does, but TELUS's speeds were really slow, and when I did my research, not enough to have Zoom calls. And like I said, the electrical hookup was for 30 amp versus 50 amp, which is what I have now. So that was the Black Creek property. And then a few days before I was scheduled to go to Gabriola with friends, one of my friends' sisters, husbands, daughters, boyfriend's friend has a bunch of land on Gabriola Island. He's a young fellow. He's got a construction company, excavating company. And on this property that he's got, he wants to put some tiny houses. He's already got one tiny house and a couple of RVs that are living there. And so I thought, okay, well, since I'm going, I will make an appointment to go see it. And so my friends and I went to see it. Now, the property itself is huge and really private. You have to come off the main road and down a long driveway, and the lot that he was building, clearing for the tiny house, was next to a pond. Really pretty orientation to have the pond there. But his shop is on the property as well, and some of his equipment. And now he said that he doesn't keep his equipment there. They usually stay on site of whatever job he's doing, but he does sometimes bring some back to do some work. He's going to put in a French drain and run the electrical from the shop. There wasn't a separate meter. What were the pluses? I mean, Gabriola Island is gorgeous. The property itself, especially when you walked up this side of the mountain a bit, you could actually see the ocean. Not from my spot, the spot that he was building. And there was the pond there. You could hear the birds, the eagles. It was quite a gorgeous spot. But really no spot there yet, though he assured me he could build it fairly quickly. There was only the electrical from the shop. I wasn't sure that was going to be sufficient. There was just not, it really wasn't set up yet. I wasn't confident in what I would end up having if I parked there. It felt kind of loosey-goosey hippie, which isn't a bad thing, but it was certainly private and quiet. Cell service was a little spotty, and I would have to figure out how to get internet there because there wasn't an internet run there yet. But I think because of the open space, I could have done Starlink or something like that. He was only going to charge $500 a month, and so the price, again, was right, and I do love Gabriola Island. I ultimately ended up with those 5 choices. Well, the Deliverance Mobile Home Park at Qualicum Beach, Deliverance Mobile Home Park, that one, I mean, that was a definite nope. I noped my way right out of there right away. The rental agent was like, oh, you could plant a big garden here and stuff. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'll be running from my car to my house and locking my doors either direction. Like, this is just sketchy place. Maybe once he's done all the work, I don't know, but so many of the mobile homes were literally falling apart, and those shacks that were right across from where this lot was being built, I mean, it was just, I would never have felt comfortable there. That was never going to be my spot. So that one noped out. I noped out of that one pretty quick. The other one that I decided fairly quickly on was not going to work for me was the Sunshine Coast, the Madeira Park Sunshine Coast one. Not because the spot isn't beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the Taylor, the young fellow who, it's a couple that owns it, but I talked to him. He was amazing. And if I were retired, I probably would have chosen that spot. But because I do travel for work sometimes, I have to go to Vancouver, because I will want to be going to Calgary. And what if we have another emergency, like when Keaton's, he had that infection in his leg and I had to go to Calgary on short notice. I didn't want to be driving for 3 hours to then take a ferry, to then get to drive to the airport, to then fly to Calgary. So I decided that while the Sunshine Coast spot, gorgeous, not for me. So those 2 I eliminated quickly. I thought when I went to Gabriola Island for this weekend away that I would really only have 2 to choose from, that I was going to be choosing from, the Black Creek and the Nanaimo location. But after seeing the Gabriola Island spot, I was in quite the conundrum, because I did really love it. I mean, I loved Black Creek. I loved the idea of being in a community. But it was, again, 3 hours now from Victoria. I did love the Nanaimo spot because it was close to the area that I've become familiar with. It's not that much farther from Victoria, so maybe about an hour and 40 minutes from Victoria, whereas right now I'm about an hour, just over an hour. But there was always going to be that possibility in the back of my mind about that knock. But really beautiful spot. And then there's Gabriola, where, the infrastructure isn't built there yet. However, really private, really pretty location. And the price was great. But I did kind of feel like I'd be living in the shop yard. And I was just worried about him as a landlord, because this wasn't something he was doing. This was something he was doing on the side. But Black Creek, $630 a month with tax. Nanaimo, $950 a month. And Gabriola, $500 a month. So 3 very different price points, and 3 very different properties. So what was I going to do? I waffled back and forth. I could not make up my mind. And so my friend Judy decided, let's do the list, because this is what she does with her partner whenever they're trying to make a big decision. So I ended up having 20 sort of factors to consider. I just started writing them down. And then what I did was I gave each of the properties a rating, so that then I could then add it up, and I figured whichever property got the best rating would be the one I would go for. Some of the things that I have on my list here is internet. Can I work from home? Is it legal? The cost, access to get the tiny house in. Is it ready for me? Does it have good cell service? What are the neighbors like? What are proximity to the airport? Is it pet friendly? The distance from Victoria. Yes, that was a factor because I have friends there. The vibe with the landlord, distance to the ocean, ambiance, and then how close to shops and amenities. Those are just some of the categories on here. So then Judy and Jay added it up, and it turned out the property that won was the Nanaimo property, with the Gabriola property being a close second and Black Creek only being a few points behind, but behind. And interestingly, as soon as she said that, I must have had a look on my face. She said, "You're not happy with that answer," and I wasn't. And so I realized that while on paper the Nanaimo property made the most sense, in here it just wasn't for me. And the reason it wasn't for me was because no matter what, I was always going to be worried that I would have another knock on the door telling me I needed to move because a neighbor complained. So that was a really interesting exercise. So that meant Nanaimo was out, because my gut reaction to it coming in first was, So that was out. So that left Gabriola and Black Creek. Even though Gabriola came up ahead of Black Creek, there was something again about it that just felt like it wasn't quite right. And I think it was that sort of loosey-goosey hippie vibe, which if I were 25 years younger, I might be okay with. But I need to have a spot that is a bit more finished, a bit more put together. And to be honest, I want a landlord who takes their job of being a landlord as their priority versus it's something that's sort of secondary. I mean, I think, and he even kind of admitted it, and he's a lovely guy. And I think if he ever actually put in some real lots, he could have a fantastic tiny house community there, or RV park. But he admitted he's just doing this to just earn some extra income. And the two RVs that are there and the one tiny house, I think they're pretty much on their own. And also, at night there, it's going to be very dark, very remote, and I'm not sure I would have felt 100% safe. Now, Black Creek, the sort of negatives were that 30 amp service and the fact that the TELUS internet was really crappy. I think 6 megabytes per second download, I think it was. Anyways, apparently not enough to do Zoom calls, and I do Zoom calls all the time. So before I called anybody, I talked to my builder about that 30 amp versus 50 amp service, and it turns out the house will run on 30 amp. I just can't plug everything in at once. Well, I don't plug everything in at once anyways, so she said it's not going to be a problem, so that was good. Now the internet, that was a big one. That could have actually taken Black Creek off of the running altogether. Starlink probably won't work there because the way it's set up. There's lots of trees around, and it's down in a bit of it's down from the road. But I did call around, and ExploreNet, which is satellite, does service a lot of clients right around there, and their speeds are good, and so they will come in and the technician will come and mount the disc either on the house or on a pole, however I want it, and so I can have internet so I can work. So Black Creek it is. I made my choice and I'm really happy about it, and I have been down there since in the sunlight. It is absolutely gorgeous. I will show you more when the time comes. I'm trying to be respectful of the other tiny houses there, so respect their privacy, not show too much of what's there. But it's legal. I never have to worry about getting that knock as long as I'm there. The price is awesome, and I have all of the utilities. It's got septic, well water. There is a laundry house, there's laundry facilities on site. There's 3 washers, 3 dryers that are there for us to use. There's also washrooms and showers that are there for the campground. But it's a gorgeous spot, and I'm looking forward to exploring that area and showing you guys all of it. But I wanted to share the options that I ended up with, the process that it took to make the decision. I could not believe how indecisive I was. I'm not normally an indecisive person, but there was just so many options. And when the Gabriola Island option came up, I think it short-circuited my brain a little bit, and then I just couldn't make a decision because the place on Gabriola, that location, the island itself is so gorgeous, and I would dearly love to live there, but I don't think that spot is right for me, at least not in the state it is now. So I'm really happy with what I've chose. I still don't have an actual move date because I'm going to use my same movers again, A&N Transport, and they're just trying to fit me into their schedule so that they can move me while they're on the island for doing another job, because they're back and forth a lot, but they are based on the mainland. It's only 2 hours up the island, so it's not a big move. I have already started to get the house ready, and I am thrilled. I'm hoping that by the end of May, I will be in my new spot so I can enjoy summer there. Sophie is not going to like the move because she hates being in the van, but at least this time it's only 2 hours, so I think she'll be fine. This view is going to look different, but it's still going to be beautiful. I think you guys are really going to like it. And I just want to say that I feel really grateful that I ended up with that many options. And if you guys want to share the process I went through to search and to find and vet out, I'm happy to do that in another video. I have made a video in the past about, how to find a parking spot, but I was very intentional and very specific in how I went about this process. Anyways, I hope that was interesting. I just wanted to share it with you guys because your support has been amazing, and I'm really grateful. Sophie and I are very grateful. So guys, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. I love you, and I'll see you next Sunday.